and welcome to the TMC Newsroom. My name's Rich Tehrani, coming to you from the Gaylord National Hotel. We're just outside of Washington, D.C., and on our program today is John Douglas, who's the marketing director at SpaceNet, and also Nitin, Bhat, who's the chief engineer of SpaceNet. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Good, thank you.
Thanks for being on the program. We spoke a couple months ago last time, John?
Yes.
That I saw you on the program. What's gone on since then?
Well, I think the biggest news on our government division has been the acquisition of RaySat antennas. It's a comms on the move antenna, low profile, very high bandwidth, allows complete broadband data, voice, video, and broadband connectivity on a moving vehicle virtually anywhere in the world.
Now, do you think that's going to be a very exciting market going forward, a lot of growth?
I think so. I mean, Nitin's much more connected,
Right.
but I think that's probably going to be the biggest market, at least in the satellite Department of Defense, over the next few years.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers, from different surveys, I mean, you have numbers ranging from more than 300,000 landline vehicles to maybe more than 1,000 aerials to maybe 4,000 or 5,000 maritime vessels. So if you look at the sheer quantity, I think it's a pretty big number.
And it seems like there's no mobile market that will remain out of reach, right? We're talking about automotive as well.
Right. Yeah, you cover basically the land, the air, and the sea. So yeah, you could use the same low-profile antenna for pretty much all these different applications. Of course, the speeds are different, go on the land or air or sea, but pretty much the same technology could be used to support all these applications.
And do we expect virtually all developed countries to be exploring this sort of technology regardless of location?
Potentially. I think the real question is what kind of infrastructure they have, what's available, and where they're going to need communications. Comms on the move, as the name would imply, is ideal if you have a rapid vehicle somewhere, or if you're in a remote location that requires satellite connectivity. It's going to compete with 3G wireless, it's going to compete with Wi-Fi and WiMAX. So it would really depend on what the customer's existing infrastructure looks like and what the requirements are. But in virtually any country, there's at least the opportunity for it to compete very effectively with existing technologies.
In some cases where the existing technology is difficult to build out,
Exactly.
it makes even more sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially for the DoD, I mean, you're going into places where probably you don't have the infrastructure, so you need to have something which can be very fast, quick deploy. I think that's a perfect fit here. You also need near real-time communications back to where you need to get it to. So I think that's where you need on-the-move communications.
And where do you see the costs going in the market?
So the cost, I think, really can only go down from here. The cost, it's been somewhat cost prohibitive, I think, has slowed the market down somewhat. I think the real big news with the acquisition is it's the first time that the equipment manufacturer for the satellite modem, for the antenna, and for the service is all under one roof. And we think that that's going to help drive the cost down, increase market acceptance, and ultimately get it to a point where I think it'll be ready for many other markets where it's got a good fit.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. Typically system integrators buy the pieces, right? They buy somebody's antenna, they buy somebody's modem, they put them all together. What the ability we have now with SIGS and RaySat is we can provide an end-to-end solution with all the pieces pretty much made in-house. We can do the service, we can do the integration. So I think that would help bring the cost down for the service.
And you really need to think about real cost as well. And prior to this, if you were going to deploy this kind of network, you would need somebody trained on the antenna, you'd need somebody trained on the modem, you need somebody trained on the service component of it, someone who could integrate it all together. So you might need multiple people to do the same job. That's really a factor, particularly for the DoD, who may or may not be able to put that many people and support that kind of level of training. This should remove a lot of that. So now you can have one solution, one place to go to for all of your answers, one real training session for all the components from one end to the other.
Well, that's good news for customers, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, cost obviously is the driving factor for these antennas. I mean, today you probably have these antennas north of $100,000 just to have the antenna and the modem. It doesn't include the integration, the service, and everything else that goes with it. And depending on the application, you see this rapidly coming down to 20,000, 50,000 kind of a number.
Great. So in terms of the satellite market, are we seeing still good forecasts for the rest of this year and next year? How are things looking?
For the market in general, it's been a pretty solid market. I think we've seen pretty good continued growth in the consumer side. The enterprise market continues to hold its own, and we've seen great growth on the first responder market. I think unfortunately, as more and more natural disasters happen, people recognize there really is no other solution except satellite when all of your terrestrial infrastructure goes down. So we've seen a number of state and local markets adopting this technology, and that's probably another good thing to point out. In response to that, SpaceNet's developed a new part-time service, and it's basically a way so you can buy the access to the network without paying full-time rates. So if you'd pay a small keep-alive fee, and then whenever you had a requirement, you'd pay by the day or by the week. So in essence, it's a way to have the service without having to pay for it when you don't need it.
Sure. So maybe like a hosted or cloud-based service kind of situation where you're...
The same model. You would have dedicated service. The model itself's not new. A number of providers have done this. What's different with the SpaceNet version of it is you actually have dedicated bandwidth. So whenever you turn it on, you're not competing with other emergency responders in the same area and limiting your bandwidth requirements. You're going to have the dedicated service level agreements that you signed up for 100% when you need it. You're just not paying for it when you don't.
That's good. So it sounds like a cost-effective solution that
It is.
that's a win-win, right? Because certainly with emergency responders, the budgets aren't always as great as they might be for the DoD, right? So they're able to take advantage of the benefits of satellite connectivity without necessarily all of the costs.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the program today. This was very exciting to see you again and to meet you, and good luck in the future.
Great. Thanks very much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you.